How to be a good wife. Chapter 1. From one wife to another. There is not the slightest doubt about it. Women can make or mar the marriage partnership more than men can. Therefore, if you find you are both drifting on the rocks, don't throw all the blame on your husband. Ask yourself fairly and squarely if you have done your best. Remember that the happiness of the home depends in a great measure on you and your exertions. If the home is not a cheery place, don't expect your husband to spend more time in it than he can help. He will be kept late at the office and have pressing calls from mysterious friends, and then you will grumble that he is always out. Don't be one of those wives who demand their husbands to do this or that for them. No man worthy of the name will be bossed. On the other hand, don't be a tame kitten or a doormat, for husbands look down on spineless women. Steer a middle course, and your husband will appreciate your wisdom. Woman is more of an enigma than man. Therefore, if your husband has not understood your wishes, don't straightway rate him as dull or heartless. It is quite likely that he cannot fathom you, and for that you are more to blame than he is. Lots of women have an idea it is lowering to their dignity to be quite frank with their husbands. The happiest partnerships are those where husband and wife know each other through and through. Don't expect any great measure of married happiness if you are the kind of wife who sets out with the idea of not letting your husband dictate to you. That is only another way of saying that you want to dictate to him. If he is an average kind of husband, there will be an explosion. Don't carry on because your husband is not exactly what he was before you were married. Then, you only saw him in his leisure hours. Now you have him on a work-a-day footing. And the two are not exactly the same. It is not clever to run down your husband to friends and neighbors. You may think it makes you look big, but most people will agree with you at the moment and go away and say you are a cat. Don't imagine for a moment that backbiting impresses anybody who matters. Don't expect your husband to wait on you hand and foot when he is at home. If he likes doing it, let him. But you have no right to look for such attentions. Just remember that his half of the bargain is to bring home the money, and yours is to run the home. Talking of money, don't be the type of wife who wheedles every farthing she can get out of her husband. The family finances ought to be very carefully worked out, and you should not take a penny more than your share. Wives are usually better at saving than husbands, in spite of all the comic papers say. Therefore, if your husband makes a poor hand at the job, persuade him to let you be the banker for a trial period. But, if he agrees, don't forget that it is your business to accumulate something in the bank and not replenish your wardrobe. Wives are really very lucky creatures, although many of them don't know it. They have a kingdom of their own, they can be their own mistress, and they do not have to work with the clock as many people have to. Therefore don't grumble about the kicks when you have so many halfpence. It is a wife's duty to look her best. If you don't tidy yourself up when you have done the bulk of the day's work, don't be surprised if your husband begins to compare you unfavorably with the typist at the office. When your husband arrives home, give him a cheery welcome, so that he is glad to be back. It's a thing a man appreciates, especially when he is tired. But don't ply him with all the pointless tidbits of news that you have heard during the day. Nor will he want to know that the maid broke a plate while washing up. He will much prefer to look at you and admire the frock you made yourself. Some wives manage their affairs so that they always have to be in some remote part of the house when their husbands pull the armchairs up to the fire and light their pipes. If you are a wife who does this, don't. Your husband is entitled to your company and he most likely misses it. He can grow accustomed to your absence and in time may prefer it, and then you will cry out that he is neglectful. If your husband has a hobby that makes the place untidy, don't be too hard on him. It certainly is aggravating at times to find everything upside down. But look on the bright side of things and thank your stars that he prefers to come home and be with you than to be sitting at the club and spending money. Don't be all smiles when visitors come, and then when they have gone, be exactly the opposite. Your husband will be quick to notice the difference, and he will draw his own conclusions. Don't pose as a weak little thing that cannot go a journey unless your husband buys your ticket and puts you in the train. Wives who do this got out of date while Queen Victoria was alive. And a woman who still persists in being femininely frail has few admirers today. Of course, if a wife asks her husband to come and see her off because she enjoys his company, that's quite another thing. Are you a flirt? Because if you are, there is trouble ahead for you, as sure as eggs are eggs. While the average husband likes his wife to be jolly and friendly with his men friends, there are very few who will tolerate flirting. Flirting is something that decent wives don't do. Don't tell your husband that you can't be bothered with business matters. It is your duty to get to understand the business of the home, such as paying the bills, the rates, and so on. And if you say you have no time for such things, he will begin to wonder whether you are really capable of handling the home purse. Don't overlook the fact that the average husband likes being made a fuss of. If you do it honestly and don't gush about it, there is nothing he won't do for you. Of course, it has got to be genuine. After all is said and done, husbands are not terribly difficult to manage. Certainly, they are not nearly as difficult as they imagine in their own hearts. If your husband is of the awkward class, you either picked a bad one or you don't know the elementary rules of husband management. In either case, you must put some of the blame on yourself. There is a saying which tells us to open our eyes wide before marriage, but to keep them half shut afterwards. Yes, keep them half shut afterwards is a very wise course to follow. All husbands have their little irritating ways, and, if our eyes are half shut, we don't see them, and, of course, they need not irritate us. Don't neglect your husband's relations. We once knew a man who was rapidly tiring of his wife, and then his mother fell ill. The wife insisted that the mother should come to them to be cared for. The mother came, and in time, grew well again. The husband saw, as he had never seen before, the sterling qualities of his wife, and the crash was averted. Don't run away with the idea that you will never lose your temper, and that your husband will never lose his. You will both do it at times. The only thing is that you must not both lose it at the same time. If you would like your husband to take you out, ask him to. Don't expect him to discover, in some mysterious way, that you want to go, and when he fails to find out, don't silently accuse him of being neglectful. You are simply being awkward if you do. The average husband would far rather buy his wife a new dress than get himself a fresh necktie. But if your wardrobe is full of dresses, and your husband's only tie is getting frayed at the edges, be reasonable and refuse the dress. Don't have it, and explain your reasons. Little actions of this kind are worth a great deal, more than all the dresses in Bond Street. There is one great difference between a husband and a wife. If a husband starts a row, he will allow himself to say his mind pretty freely, but when he has said it, it is said and done with. The wife, on the other hand, may be more careful of what she says at the time, but she will rake it all up again at a later opportunity, and she will keep on doing it. This looks as though the man is more forgiving than the woman, which is after all something to his credit. Therefore, don't rake up old scores if you have any self-pride. This is Mother Ulterior. Have a blessed day.